Hey guys, thank you very much for tuning into another video of my life. And in this video, we are going to go through 5 simple steps to choosing your next laptop. The goal is to give you a sort of an overview, a simple step-by-step guide so you end up with the right product for you in terms of a laptop, because it can get very complicated and laptops of course aren't the cheapest of things these days. So you want to make sure that you stretch out your sort of money as much as possible with the product you end up getting. So the first step we're going to go through is the budget. Of course, you want to set yourself a budget and you don't want to exceed that. If you set yourself 750, for example, I wouldn't look at anything approaching 800 or 850 or anything else like that. It can be a slippery slope. You consider a slight upgrade for 25, another 25, before you know it, you spent another £200. Also, with the budget, although when you do decide on it, you do want to maximize how much you spend on it. The more you spend on your laptop, the less likely it is that you'll have to replace it sooner. Usually, the less pricey the laptop is, the slower the processor speed will be, and so on and so forth, and it'll be slow and sluggish to begin with anyway. A couple of years later, once it's had a couple of operating sort of system updates, you've got the more complicated apps going on your installed device, or maybe the websites are getting heavier and more complex as time goes on as well. There'll be more resource demands on your laptop, which will make your experience even slower compared to what it is even now. So by spending as much as possible, what you'll probably end up finding is that you won't have to replace your device as early as you might have done if you'd spent a lot less. When it comes to spending as well, a couple of things you can try, because again, laptops aren't the cheapest things in the world, but they are very important to us. I mean, if you think about it, you're speaking to people on the other side of the world, you're video editing, you might be photo editing, you might be doing your work on there, consuming media on there. So it's a very, very important device. So you do want to spend on it, but at the same time, you want to stick to your budget. And when it comes to spending as well, you want to consider something like maybe a 0% credit card, maybe you want to consider buy now, pay later agreement, where you clear it off in full within the interest-free period, so it doesn't cost you anything extra, but it does help with cash flow as well. But the key point with a budget is spend as much as possible without going over your budget, and stick to your budget no matter what, with the goal of it paying in the long term by you not having to replace your devices as quickly as you would otherwise. The second factor you want to consider now is the screen size. Okay, so for someone like me, I consume a lot of media on my laptop. I work on Excel files. I do a lot of sort of word processing and so on. So if I go out for a larger screen, so let's say 15.6 inches or 16 inches, it allows me to see more rows per screen in a document or in an Excel file, and it does help you with efficiency of completing a task. You can also multitask more easily. You can snap a couple of windows or even 4 windows together on a single screen, because it's not something smaller like a 14 inches, for example. So for me, 15.6 or 16 inches the minimum. For other people, of course, you have to kind of decide for yourself what the right screen size is. Maybe it's 14 inches, maybe it's something smaller even, or something larger. But you've got to decide on the sort of use you have on your laptop, and the minimum screen size that you can get away with for that use. The second thing that naturally feeds in with the screen size is the size of the device and portability. The smaller the screen size is going to be, the more portable it will be, and usually it weighs less as well. Whereas if you have a larger screen size, it will go hand in hand with being, of course, larger, and therefore also weighs more as well, which might affect potential portability applications. The second thing is as well, a larger laptop, usually, not always, does have a lower battery life than a smaller laptop. So if it's really, really important for you that you have 16 hours of battery versus 9 hours, you might find that for a like-for-like specification, if you opt for a 14-inch device, it might be a longer battery life than a 16-inch. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, you should be going for the largest screen size that you can afford, which is not affecting your portability or the weighing, sort of weight kind of aspect of the device. But as mentioned, depending on how you use devices, you will have your own screen size preference. By all means, go into a shop, look at the various different devices, look at what a 14-inch looks like, look at what a 16-inch looks like, so you're making the right decision before you buy anything. The third simple step in choosing your next laptop is the processor. With the processor, it's very simple. Whichever laptop that you are considering within your budget, after you've decided on the screen size, you want to make sure that it's the fastest processor possible. And the way you're going to check this is very simple. You're going to go to a website such as cpubenchmark.net. On here, you go in the search field and you type in exactly or copy paste exactly the model of the CPU which is in front of you on a retail website, for example. Give you an example: Intel Core i5 12500H. So you want to just copy and paste that, and you want to look at the average CPU mark of the multi-thread rating. And here it's very simple: the higher the number, the better. So if I was looking at two different laptops, let's say they both cost £700 or £650, whatever it may be, and one has a scoring of 18,000, and the other one has 21,000, I would suggest that you go for the 21,000. There are some extra benefits for going for the most powerful processor as well. Usually, in hand with the processing power, you will have other features like Wi-Fi, or how fast the Wi-Fi is. Is it Wi-Fi 6, for example? It sometimes also goes hand in hand with this screen refresh rate of the device. It'll go hand in hand with whether it has a fingerprint scanner or not, whether it has an infrared camera for Windows Hello, and so on and so on and so on. So if you have a faster processor, usually there will be other features that will take care of themselves without you having to think about them specifically, like USB ports and the speed at which you can do things via the USB port and so on. So it all kind of links in, but the processor is kind of the heart of it all in terms of its sort of resource utilization. So you want to make sure that you buy the fastest processor possible within your budget, okay? And the way you're going to do that is by shortlisting a couple of laptops which fit your need, and you're going to use websites such as CPU Benchmark to look at the scores, and simply buying the one which has the sort of maximum score possible. The third one is screen resolution and screen refresh rate as well. So screen refresh rate is going to be shown in hertz. Most of the time, most devices will just be normal. They won't be extra fast. But if you look at a higher number, again, higher the better. So let's say if you look at 120 hertz screen, that just means it's like 120 frames per second. Oftentimes, it might be up to, so it'll dynamically potentially adjust. Most of the times it might be 50 or 60 hertz, and then it will ramp up to 120 as it feels that things are moving quite quickly on the screen, and it'll adapt dynamically. Again, that kind of links in with the process thing we've just talked about. And the screen resolution, of course, the highest screen resolution that you think that you can afford as well as notice. And the second aspect is very important, okay? So I've got plenty of family members. If I show them screens 1080p, okay, 2K, 3K, 4K, a lot of them will not be able to see the difference between a 1080p, which is full HD, versus a 2K screen, okay? If you're one of those people, do you really need to spend the extra money for a higher sort of screen resolution? But if you are someone who consumes a lot of media, you do a lot of graphics work maybe, then in that case, the higher the screen resolution, the more easier it is going to be. If you read a lot, of course, the font should be clearer, so long as you are someone who notices it. I'm someone who does notice it, so in my opinion, this is 2024 when I'm making this video, I would not personally look at a screen which is less than sort of 3K. That's just my personal preference, and of course that way I'm future-proofing as well. Likelihood is that maybe in 4 years' time or 5 years' time, a lot more media is going to be available at 4K or 8K versus the amount that's available today. So therefore, in my opinion, the screen resolution is the highest that you can possibly get. The frame rate is the highest that you can possibly get within your budget. But at the same time, this is one of those things where I would say if you don't notice the difference, you might not need to spend that much extra, and maybe you might be able to get some other benefits instead, like a faster processor in exchange for that. Now, the fifth step is other. Now, this is where, as long as you've got number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4 correct, these other things should usually take care of themselves in that you won't have to think about them specifically separately. So it's very unlikely, for example, in this day and age that you spend £750 or £800 on a laptop in 2024, on a Windows laptop, and it doesn't have Windows Hello with an IR camera, infrared camera that is, or a fingerprint scanner. It's very unlikely. So just by taking care of a budget, you've taken care of another feature. Alternatively, let's say if you're just spending $350 or something lower, then in that case, again, you might not even have a choice of some of these other features like AI, for example. It's very unlikely that you'll have an AI laptop at a price of $350 in 2024. So then you don't even have to worry about AI. Whether it has or doesn't have AI, for example, it doesn't matter because your budget does not allow for that. So if you go through the steps 1, 2, 3, 4, by the time you get to 5, you won't really have to micromanage these things. It'll just be there or won't be there. But these are the things you want to keep in mind. So the number of and type of ports as well. So do you want a type A, which is the traditional port, in addition to type C as well? Sometimes you'll get devices which these days only have like a few type C ports. They don't have type A at all. And that's something that you might need. You have HDMI ports, how many, how fast, and so on. So you've got type C as well, which can be some are really, really quick, really fast, high speed, and on the other hand, some are not. Again, these things will go hand in hand with the fastest processor that you've managed to get for your budget, and the budget will then interact with these extra sort of features. So again, the other, as long as you do 1, 2, 3, 4 correctly, the 5 will take care of itself. You will only have a handful of things different between the couple of devices that you've ended up with by that point. The other thing, this isn't that important for me personally, but you might want to consider things like after-sale service. So I remember I purchased a laptop. It had a microphone fault. I won't name the manufacturer, but I went back to the manufacturer. I had the option to chat with them via web chat. I could give them a call, discuss my issue. They could remotely access the device to sort of diagnose it, etc. They found out that it was a hardware issue, no fault of the customer, anything like that, and they were happy to try and fix it as well for me. And on the other hand, I could have just gone back to the retailer to try and fix it as well, which is what I ended up doing. But you might want, that's something that might be important to you. So if there is a retailer, I shouldn't say retailer, sorry, if there's a manufacturer out there, a brand out there of a laptop, which either has a lot of faults normally or the after-sales service is not that good, you might want to keep that in mind as well. But again, these things I would still say are other. By and large, I think most devices are reliable. By and large, most of these retailers are not going to stock brands which have a lot of issues, because usually it's going to cause issues for the retailer as well, because that's who you would first approach if something goes wrong in your device. So these other things should, like I said, take care of themselves. So if I just wrap up the video with the 5 simple steps to choosing your next laptop, the first thing is budget, the maximum possible without exceeding it. The second thing is screen size. What's the right screen size for you? For me, it's the larger the better, up to 15.6 to 16. Maybe 17 might be too much. Keep in mind weight, keep in mind size and portability, but you have to think about the sort of use you have and what sort of screen size you need. Once you've done that, you want to go onto the processor. Processor is not something that you will have at the top of your head, but the main thing you want to do is just use the CPU benchmarking website and just higher the score, the better. Okay, and that's what you want to pick. If one has 20,000 score, one has 21,000 score, you want to pick the 21. Number 4 is screen resolution. Again, here, the higher the better. But again, we're getting to the more subjective side of things, where if you don't notice the difference, it might not matter whether it's full HD or whether it's 2K or 3K or anything else like that. So in your case, you just 1080p might be fine, and you want to maybe focus on refresh rate, so how quickly the screen refreshes, how many hertz it has, so that the movement on the screen is really smooth when you're consuming media and when you're sort of navigating around the screen as well. So screen resolution and the screen refresh rate, do you even notice the difference, and how fast can it be? And finally, in terms of other, as I've mentioned, as long as you do these other steps in order, you won't have much choice in the others section anyway, but you want to give these things a thought. Do you want Windows Hello with the infrared camera? Are you happy with the fingerprint instead? Are you happy with none of those things? I personally would want, in 2024 and onwards, either a fingerprint scanner or an infrared camera, and I think you should too. And other things as well, which affects portability, the weight or the thickness or the number of ports, the type of ports, the speed of ports, after-sales service, and so on. But like I said, as long as you do the budget and the processor correctly, these other things will take care of themselves, okay? And you'll end up with the best product that you can buy within your budget. So please, please, please give this video a like. Please comment in the section below if you have any other tips that you think someone else might find helpful, as well as consider using the links in the description. They go to eBay, which is where I oftentimes buy things from as well. You want to consider other retailers, but sometimes on eBay you get bargains, you can get used, you can get refurbished items and so on, or even brand new from retailers. So hopefully this video helped you, and thanks very much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.